Welcome, everybody. So, today we have Rob Collins talking to us about housing rights. Rob Collins is the Miami-Dade County Education and Outreach Coordinator at Housing Opportunity Project for Excellence called HOPE. It's a nonprofit that fights housing discriminations in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. He's a member and past chair of the Miami-Dade County Commission on Human Rights. He's a 2011 graduate of the University of Miami School of Law and has previously spent years living at St. Louis, Seattle, and Chicago, where he is from. So I will hand over to Robert to hear his presentation. Welcome, Rob.
Thanks very much. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Brooke, I thought the sign language for you, the University of Miami, is like this. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so am I a co-host now, Shanti, or a host? All right, thanks very much. So hello, everybody. My name is Rob Collins. I work at Hope Incorporated. We fight discrimination in housing in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. We go out and we tell people about their rights. And then if somebody thinks that they are facing discrimination, they can call us. I'm a lawyer. We help them out. Everything we do is free. We have been around since 1988. And in those 33, let me get my math right. In those 33 years, we've gotten millions of dollars from people who discriminate in housing. On your screen there, those are the reasons it's illegal to discriminate in housing. There's a lot of things on that list. There's a lot of things that are not on that list. Your credit score, the amount of money you make, your criminal background, none of those things are on the list. So, if a housing provider says, oh, your credit's not good enough, you can't live here, they can totally say that. But it happens all the time that they say it's your credit, when really it's because you are Hispanic, or a single mother, or you're gay, or you have HIV. If the real reason that you're being treated differently is one of the things on the list, then it's illegal. And it happens all the time that they tell you one thing, but it's actually just an excuse for something else. They know the law. They know what's on this list and what's not on this list. So they know they can't say no Hispanics. So they use your credit in the example I gave earlier as an excuse. Please let us know if you think it is happening to you. We also, you're not going to see somebody put up a sign that says, no black people allowed. That's too obvious. But they are still doing the discrimination. Instead, they will say, oh, the place is not available, sorry. But then 2 weeks later, you still see them listing it after they told you no one could move in there anymore. Or they get your paperwork and they see your last name, or they see where you're from, and they just throw it out. They never consider you. Or they get your phone call and they say, oh, we'll call you back. But they just don't call you back. Or they have the nerve to tell you that you and your family might be more comfortable in that neighborhood over there. Any of those things, even something as simple as not calling you back, if it's because of the reasons on the screen, it is just as illegal as putting out a sign. Please call us and let us know if you think it happens to you. We also warn people about predatory lending, about scams. Usually, the scam places are the ones that make it very easy for you. No credit, bad credit, no problem. And they're just giving you money. That is probably a scam because they are not a charity. They are not going to give you a bunch of money to pay for your house, and then they don't care if you can pay it back. They are a business. So probably the contract that you would sign says something completely different than what they are telling you. So you want to read everything before you sign anything, or have someone explain it to you who you trust before you sign anything. And if they're not giving you time to read it or have it explained to you, go work with somebody else. It's that easy. Because if your mortgage is going to be 30 years long, 3 decades long, you should have an extra day or an extra week if you need it to go through all the paperwork. And if they're not giving you that time, there's probably something in the paperwork that they don't want you to read. Both in that kind of scam and in discrimination, the people who do it to you are usually very nice when they do it. They smile, they shake your hands, they tell you jokes, they make you feel like you really went through the process so that you don't realize as soon as they saw you were a woman, or as soon as they saw the color of your skin, they weren't going to treat you right. Because if you knew that, then you would tell your friends, help me, Howard, call the police, report them. They want to avoid all of that trouble. They don't want you to know that you were treated differently. If they were nice to you, but there was still a problem, please call us, because they might just be trying to stay under your radar. If we have to investigate, we'll send 10 people to pretend like they want to live in the same place. And some will be women, some will be white people, Some will say they have kids, whatever it is we're looking for. And they'll all come back to us and tell us how they got treated. And we look for patterns of different kinds of people getting different answers about what's available, how much it costs, when they can move in. And when we see those patterns, that is our evidence for discrimination. You're treating different people differently. And we have had to sue a lot of places. I'm going to run down a list. We've had to sue Aventura Harbor up near North Miami Beach, Nile Gardens by the North Campus of Miami-Dade College near Opa-locka, Creek Club by Jackson Hospital, Country Club Villas in Miami Lakes, Elite Riverview where Allapattah meets Little Havana, J Apartments on Miami Beach, Royal House in Coral Gables, La Jolla down in Naranja in South Dade, Flagler Plaza out near West Miami. We had to sue all of these places. There's another place where, in the city of Miami, where Little Haiti meets Wynwood. It's called Design Place or D Place. It used to be an all-black housing complex called Sable Palms. We sent a bunch of black people and a bunch of white people. They went on different days. They dealt with different people. They alternated. Every single white person at Design Place, they said, oh, you can move in on the 1st, whatever. Every single black person, they said, oh, sorry, nothing's available. And even if something were available, the price they gave the black people was $100 more per month than it was for the white people. You can Google Design Place discrimination. We have had to sue them more than once. Like I said, they're nice when they do it. So unless you are hiding in the bushes or something, you may not realize that the answer that they are giving you is different than the answer that they are going to give the very next person, just because he or she looks different than you. Other times, however, unfortunately, you may be able to tell that discrimination has occurred. It is easier to tell. They put the paperwork down on the table instead of slide it over to you, instead of handing it to you. Or they roll their eyes when they see you coming. Or they don't look you in the face when they're talking to you. Or they speak a different language that they know you don't speak to make you feel uncomfortable. Or they give you short, dismissive answers. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Make you feel like you shouldn't be there. Or they're just rude to you in a way that you know they're not being rude to everyone, and or in a way that you're not being treated in other places that you go. It's just this place that has a hang-up. Please call us and let us know if you think it happens to you, because it happens all the time. The only other thing I have to say is those people who we send out who are pretending like they want to live somewhere, helping us with our investigations, we pay them to do that. if you or anybody you know who's over 18 wants to help with our investigations, you can call the number at the bottom of the screen for whichever county is your county, and we'll pay you. It's not like a full-time job. It's only as investigations are happening, but we are always looking for people. So I'll take any questions if there are any, but you can also call us during regular business hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, if you have questions that you do not want to ask in this setting. And I'll just say thank you, Shanti. Thank you, CIL, for having me. And thank you, Brooke, for the sign language interpretation.
Thank you so much, Rob. So now I'm going to ask everybody any questions for Rob.
Yes, what are some other instances that may not be on the list that would qualify for discrimination, or have you pretty much covered everything?
That is a great question. Everything that is illegal is on the list. So they might tell you, oh, your credit score isn't good enough. They can totally say that. That is not on the list. So I'm glad you asked that, because other things that you encounter, anything that's not on this list is legal.
Okay, now if they're aware that you're a victim of domestic violence, people have been known not to rent to you for that reason?
So you can make a complaint.
Oh.
And on that note, I will say,
so they would discriminate against you if you were a victim of domestic violence.
yeah, I mean, yes. Long story short, yes. And that, I'm glad you mentioned that. That it happens often does not make it legal.
Right.
There are a lot of places that say no children. It's illegal every time. There are a lot of places that will treat you differently based on your religion, or say no Section 8 every time, with a very small exceptions. Every time it's illegal.
Did you have a question?
Yes. What about price gouging?
That's
Sometimes
illegal, but that is not discrimination. But it's still illegal, and you should call the Attorney General or the state attorney, whichever you choose. The Attorney General being for the state of Florida, or the state attorney, which they have one for each county. Long story.
And have you got the information for that, Rob?
I mean, not off the top of my head. I can Google it, I guess. I would have to look it up on the internet.
No, it's okay. Don't worry. I
Yeah,
can
you
do
could
that.
just Google price gouging Miami, and the information would probably come up. But that is outside of our area of work.
So you say the state attorney or the inspector general?
Attorney General.
Oh, Attorney General.
Yeah.
Anybody else has a question? So I have a couple of questions. So Rob, what are the common cases you typically get?
Disability is the biggest reason that people face discrimination. Also, we do get people who say no kids. We do get people that say, those are the biggest ones. There's a lot of racial discrimination, but a lot of those people who are doing that, they know to hide it more. The people who are discriminating for disability, no Section 8, no kids, a lot of times they don't bother to hide it.
That's true.
So if it's a case of a disability, what are the landlords saying, or rather the owners saying as an excuse?
I mean, it's very case by case, but if somebody needs a service animal or an emotional support animal, they'll say, oh, we have a no animals policy. Excuse me. If somebody needs a parking space reserved, a lot of times they'll say, oh, we don't reserve parking for anybody. If it's, I need a ramp to be put in, oh, we have building codes that don't allow for that. But it's very case by case.
So when I was trying to rent out, what happened is my realtor spoke to the landlord in front of me, and actually he mentioned that I'm in a wheelchair. First the landlord said, yes, you can come and see the place and everything. So then he said, I'm in a wheelchair. He immediately said, oh, I've got a lot of applications, I have to think about it. So in such a case, if I came to you, what would you do?
That's right. So that's where our investigations come in. If you think that anything on this list is the real reason that you got treated differently, and like I said, they're not going to put out a sign that says no people in wheelchairs allowed, no black people allowed. But in a case like that, every case is so different, but in a case like that, everything's fine until they found out I was in a wheelchair. Call us. And then every case is different. So we might investigate. Maybe they put something in writing and we don't even need to investigate. Like, oh, no kids allowed here. Oh, you can't have your seeing eye dog because we have a no pets policy. Maybe something's in writing. So every case is different. But the one thing that is true for all of the cases is call us.
Okay, and so you say Section 8, if some communities say Section 8 is not accepted, is that something that is not allowed, or are they mandated to accept Section 8?
That is source of income discrimination. If they say no Section 8, that is discrimination based on the source of your income, not the amount, but where your money is coming from. So no Section 8, if they say that in Miami-Dade or Broward, that is illegal, and you could call us, just like if they said no white people.
Okay, so it's typically mandated to accept Section 8 everywhere.
In Miami-Dade and Broward, so not everywhere.
What I mean is in Miami-Dade.
In Miami-Dade, yep.
Because there are some communities who say no Section 8.
Yep, so there are communities that say no children allowed. There are communities that say no Jewish people allowed. Just because, like I was saying earlier, just because you see it and just because they say it with confidence doesn't mean it's legal. So call us if you think it happens to you.
So implicit discrimination is more challenging to fight, I suppose.
Not necessarily. That's a good question. No, just because somebody, let's say, implicit for the benefit of everybody on this call, if they aren't saying no black people, but for example, but the result of their actions keep out Black people, we can still investigate for that. We could still send 10 people to pretend like they want to live there. And this is, by the way, I didn't clearly say, it does say there, this is rentals and sales. But just because a place doesn't say it explicitly, they don't use the words, we don't want you here, we can still investigate. And that if such discrimination is the result, and our investigation shows that the discrimination is happening, whether or not they say it explicitly, it's still illegal. So it may not even be harder to prove. It's just that they didn't say it, but we can still investigate it. Now, if somebody fires a gun and they accidentally shoot somebody, their fingerprints are still on the gun. So whether or not somebody means to discriminate, if they did it and the investigation can prove that it happened, it doesn't actually matter whether they meant to, whether they were obvious about it, whether or not they think they have a good excuse. You can always complain. And on this point, I will say that I don't want anybody to keep themselves from calling because they think it's hard to prove or because they think it's a difficult case, because too few people make complaints. A lot of people face discrimination and decide to tolerate it. So we don't want to give anybody a reason not to complain.
Could it be because they cannot remain anonymous?
They can remain anonymous. Yep,
So
I'm
why
glad
do you
said
think
that.
is the hesitation?
Oh, there's any number of reasons. Just a second. People think they need a lawyer. People think, oh, that's just how people like me get treated. People think it takes a lot of time. People think it takes money. So there are lots of reasons why people do not make complaints. But whatever the reason is, if you don't complain, that is exactly why people do it. Because they know that you won't complain. For whatever reason you have, if you don't complain, you are contributing to making that person who's doing the discrimination, you are contributing to them feeling like they can discriminate because I did it to you and you didn't even say anything.
So you spoke about predatory lending, right?
Yes.
So could you tell us more about it or give us some examples of it?
So, as I was saying, usually it's a place that tries to get you to borrow money, but they're not telling you all the strings attached in your agreement with them. So the repayment amount that you owe is way greater than you think. Or the interest is greater than you think. The penalty for being late is way greater than you think. So that's how predatory lending works, that it's a much worse deal for you to borrow money than you are being led to believe. Yeah.
So if I want to rent a place and I feel it's not accessible and it's a fairly new building, what would be the reasonable accommodation that they would have to provide?
Okay, so it depends. It always depends, especially with a reasonable accommodation or modification. And it would have to be whatever your situation requires. So for a person in a wheelchair, maybe it's a ramp. But for somebody with mobility impairment, but not a wheelchair, maybe it's just a first floor unit. It depends. Every case is different. So good question, but the answer is just call us and we'll help you through it if that happens.
Okay, and what's the most bizarre case you've had? I mean, most bizarre excuse a landlord or anybody has given not to rent it out.
Yeah, okay.
Facility.
We happen to have a good answer for this one. 2 years ago, a place, a rental community in Miramar called Sorrento, they told a woman that they would not renew her lease because she was pregnant and she did not provide a picture from her ultrasound.
Oh, good God.
And they said, oh, it doesn't matter that you're pregnant. It's our policy that you have to give an ultrasound picture if you're pregnant. So that was the most bizarre, easily. Nobody's ever heard of that before.
Okay.
Incidentally, as we've been on here, I am seeing that your invites for today went to Google, a Google account. I never use it. So that's where all of your invites went.
Okay. So anybody has any other questions?
Yes, do this, what about the homeowner association? Sometimes they make up excuse for the renters, the landlords.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Anybody. It could be the homeowners association, a landlord, a property manager, a condo association, the person who shows you around, the person who answers the phone, the lender at the bank, anybody whose job has to do with your housing, even if they are a volunteer. A lot of homeowners associations are made up of volunteers. They can still be sued if they have any role in your housing. So I'm glad you asked that. It's anybody.
Okay.
And what if somebody rents, a person in a wheelchair rents the living on the third floor, and the elevator keeps giving trouble, but they did not know that the elevator gives trouble before renting? What happens then?
Yeah. So then it depends. There's no one answer to that. Can the elevator be fixed? Are there units available on the first floor? Is the person willing to be transferred to another building? So there are lots of variables.
Okay. So anybody else have anything else to ask, Rob? No?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay,
Well,
Rob, thank you so
certainly-
much.
Thank you. Certainly, if
Mr.
you have
Collins.
questions later,
We sure enjoyed this.
thank you. Certainly, if you have questions later, you can call us later.
Definitely. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye, Shanta. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.